Bringing Down a Congressman, The Death of Chandra Levy, 2001. 23-year-old Chandra Levy was young, ambitious, and attracted to the halls of power. She interned for the mayor of Los Angeles when she was an undergraduate at San Francisco State University. While she was a graduate student at the University of Southern California, she interned for the governor of California. She had completed most of the requirements for her master's degree in public administration from the University of Southern California when she left home in Modesto, California, and rented an apartment in Washington, D.C., in September 2000. Her internship at the Federal Bureau of Prisons began on October 23. Please subscribe and like it if you enjoy the video so far. In the month following Levy's arrival in the Capitol, she met Congressional Representative Gary Condit, 53, a Democrat for her conservative California district. She and a friend had dropped in to see him at his Capitol Hill office, and he offered the friend, who had no job, an internship. Condit was the son of a Baptist preacher. He had married Carolyn Berry just after high school in 1967, and they had 2 children, son Chad and daughter Kadee. A career politician, he was elected to the Ceres City Council just after college, at the age of 24, and became mayor 2 years later. He joined the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors at the age of 28, was elected a state assemblyman at 35, and then elected to the U.S. Congress in 1989 at the age of 41. Condit was nearly 30 years older than Levy, but the two soon began dating. He gave her gifts of chocolate and a gold bracelet. He also imposed rules about how to avoid being seen together. They had to keep their romance a secret. She would contact him by leaving a message at a telephone number that played music, or she called his office. Condit also instructed her not to get off the elevator when she reached his floor in the apartment building where he lived in the trendy Adams Morgan neighborhood if anyone else was riding with her. If someone asked, she was to say that she was visiting a sick friend. The two saw each other several times a week. During a visit that Levy paid to her Aunt Linda Zamsky for Passover in April 2001, the young intern let it slip that Condit was her boyfriend. Levy returned to Washington, where she celebrated her 24th birthday on April 14, 2001. Her internship ended 9 days later, after the Federal Bureau of Prisons discovered that she was no longer eligible for an internship since she had completed her coursework and was, therefore, no longer a student. Levy prepared to return to California for her graduation ceremonies, which were set for May 11 at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. She was upbeat as she talked to her parents, Susan and Dr. Robert Levy, on the phone on April 27. That evening, she hung out with her friend Robert Kirkjian and his roommates, having beer and pizza and watching movies. She spoke to Condit on April 29 about her upcoming travel plans and graduation. The following day, she canceled her membership at the Washington Sports Club on Connecticut Avenue. Her bags were packed, and she was excited about going home to Modesto. On May 1, she sat down at her computer at 9 a.m. and searched the internet all morning. She sent her parents an email regarding her airplane fares to fly home on Southwest Airlines, and then looked up the website for Rock Creek Park, a 1,754-acre green space located about 3 miles from her apartment. She logged off for the last time at 1 p.m. and then left her DuPont Circle apartment. For the next several days, her parents phoned repeatedly to confirm their daughter's travel plans. When they were unable to reach her, they became concerned and called the building manager. Disappearance. On May 6, 9 days after Susan and Robert Levy last talked to Chandra and 5 days after her last email to them, they called Condit for help. He had been unable to reach Levy as well, but he only learned of her disappearance from her parents. The Levys called the police and asked them to go to their daughter's home in Washington, D.C. When officers searched her apartment, they found 2 pieces of luggage that were packed, jewelry, her driver's license, and credit cards. Some of her clothes were still hanging in the closet. There were dirty dishes in the sink and dirty laundry in a bag. Besides Levy herself, only her keys were missing. There were no signs of foul play. Robert Levy told detectives that he believed his daughter was having an affair with Condit. She had confided in his sister-in-law, and her cell phone bills indicated that she had called his office repeatedly. They interviewed Condit at his Washington, D.C. condo on the evening of May 9. The following day, he asked the Federal Bureau of Investigation to help in the search for Levy, and he also contributed $10,000 from his campaign treasury toward a reward for information leading to Levy's whereabouts. This amount brought the total reward money to $42,000. It was not until his third interview with police, 2 months later, that Condit finally confessed that he was having an extramarital affair with Levy at the time of her disappearance. Police and FBI agents conducted a 3.5-hour search of his apartment, but found no signs of a struggle or foul play. Condit said that he knew nothing about Levy's disappearance and refused, in media interviews, to divulge the nature of his relationship with Chandra Levy. He passed a polygraph test that his lawyer arranged to have administered by a former FBI agent. Police decided not to arrange to have him take one after his lawyers insisted on placing restrictions on the types of questions that investigators could ask. Detectives also interviewed Levy's friends, neighbors, co-workers, and employees of the gym where she had canceled her membership just before she vanished. No one could shed any light on her whereabouts. Since there were no signs of foul play, investigators continued to treat Levy's disappearance as a missing person case. FBI agents joined Washington, D.C. police in a search of abandoned buildings throughout the D.C. area as well as of Rock Creek Park, but they found no sign of Levy. The Levys were concerned about the police investigation. They held a news conference in Washington, D.C., on May 17, 2001, to draw public attention to their daughter's disappearance. They also met with police detectives. The story finally hit the national headlines and began being featured on television stations CNN and NBC. The coverage would come to overwhelm the investigation, pointing detectives in the wrong direction for months. They initially believed that Condit knew more about Chandra's disappearance. On June 14, her parents held another news conference. They insisted that their congressman reveal everything he knew about Chandra's disappearance. Condit maintained that he had given police as much information as he possessed. In early July, Levy's aunt went public about her niece's affair with the married congressman, and Levy turned out not to be the only one with a secret. United Airlines flight attendant Anne-Marie Smith stepped forward on July 2 and said that she had had a 10-month affair with Condit. They first met on July 10, 2000, aboard a flight from San Francisco to Dulles, and they met for dinner 2 days later. During their courtship they met in hotels in California, and she occasionally stayed at his Washington, D.C. condominium. Smith also said that she was asked to sign an affidavit denying the affair. In an interview with Fox Television, Smith displayed a copy of a draft affidavit in which she was to say, "I did not and have not had a relationship with Congressman Condit other than being acquainted with him. I do not and have not had a romantic relationship with Congressman Condit. I declare under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States of America that the foregoing is true and correct." Condit denied that Smith had been asked to lie. Several weeks later, one of his former staffers, Jolene Argentini McKay, said that she had had a 3-year affair with the married congressman in the mid-1990s. Police launched a preliminary investigation into a possible obstruction of justice by Condit, including the potential role of 2 of his staffers. Several hours before police searched Condit's apartment on July 10, the congressman was spotted tossing out the box for a watch that a female former aide had given him. Police were tipped off, and they found it the following day in a trash bin near a McDonald's in Alexandria, Virginia. It was the box that had once held the watch that former congressional aide McKay had given him. On July 25, 2001, police cadets searched Rock Creek Park but found no trace of Levy. Meanwhile, Condit continued to be dogged by reporters, as media coverage intensified and continued relentlessly around the clock. It had now reached a fever pitch. Journalists camped outside the house that he shared with his wife Carolyn on Acorn Lane in Ceres, just south of Modesto, California. According to a CNN/USA Today/Gallup poll that was conducted at the time, 63% of Americans admitted that they were following the story. On August 12, the Modesto Bee newspaper, which had supported Condit throughout his 30-year political career, called for his resignation. That is when the congressman realized that it was time for him to go on the offensive. He launched a campaign to try to rescue his tarnished image. He agreed to an interview with ABC television news anchor Connie Chung and a cover story for People magazine, but he refused to disclose information during the television interview about his relationship with Levy, and that made him appear evasive. The story of Levy's disappearance and her affair with Condit finally slid out of the spotlight when terrorists bombed New York City's World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. But Condit's problems did not. On March 6, 2002, he lost his bid to be re-elected to Congress as the representative for the Modesto, California, area. His philandering and involvement with a woman younger than his own daughter had destroyed his political career. Homicide investigation. More than 2 months later, a man was walking his dog along a wooded bank in Rock Creek Park on May 22, 2002, at 9:30 a.m. He spotted a piece of clothing and stumbled upon a half-buried human skull. The remains were scattered in a remote area of the wooded park, not far from a jogging trail, along with pieces of clothing, a pair of sunglasses, a sneaker, and a Sony Walkman. The man called the police. The spot was not far from where searchers had looked for Levy the previous year, but they stopped just short of where her remains were eventually found. Later that day, medical examiners used dental records to positively identify Levy. Medical examiner Dr. Jonathan Arden concluded that she was a homicide victim, but he was not able to determine how she was killed. It appeared that she had been tied up using a torn leotard that had been twisted into a rope. Her remains were found a mile north of Klingel Mansion in the park. Klingel was the park's headquarters, located in a 3-story farmhouse. Just before she disappeared 13 months earlier, Levy had visited the building's website. Now that police had found the young woman's remains, a missing person case finally became a homicide investigation. More than 1,000 people joined Levy's family for a memorial service in Modesto, California's Convention Center. Her grandmother, great-aunt, brother, and friends spoke during the 90-minute ceremony. Washington, D.C., police and the Mobile Crime Unit spent more than a week searching the woods where Chandra's remains were located. They found small bones, a sock, and some teeth. On June 6, after the police had completed their search, 2 investigators hired by the Levy family went to Rock Creek Park. They discovered Chandra's shin bone and a piece of twisted wire that police had missed during their search. The police returned to the scene and resumed their search yet again, this time with the help of trained volunteer searchers. They uncovered more bones, including a foot-long bone, and 2 small bones no more than 2 inches long, which resembled other bones in Levy's foot. Police decided to re-interview Salvadorian illegal immigrant Ingmar Guandique. He had made his way to the United States in 2000 and lived near Rock Creek Park at the time of Levy's disappearance. He had failed to show up for work at his construction job on the day that she vanished. He was arrested on May 7, 2001, after breaking into a neighbor's apartment and was charged with burglary and released after promising to appear for a court date on May 29. Guandique approached Hallie Schilling, a 30-year-old writer, on May 14, 2001, while she was jogging in Rock Creek Park. She fought him off and reported the attack to the U.S. Park Police. He had made no attempt to steal her Walkman or her engagement ring. She believed that he planned to rape or kill her. Christy Wiegand, a 25-year-old lawyer, managed to fight off her attacker on July 1 as she jogged in the park. The U.S. Parks Police arrested Guandique 45 minutes later. Wiegand positively identified him as her attacker. During interrogations the next day, he admitted to having bumped into the 2 women. He was charged with assault and kidnapping in connection with the attack on Wiegand, but the D.C. police, which was investigating the Levy disappearance, did not hear about Guandique's arrest until 3 weeks later, on July 24. On February 8, 2002, he was sentenced to a 10-year term behind bars after pleading guilty to attacking the 2 women in Rock Creek Park. After finding Levy's remains, police decided to re-interview Guandique. Both of his victims had been assaulted with a knife on isolated trails near steep inclines, the same type of terrain where Levy's remains were found. Guandique would approach the women from behind as they listened on headphones to a portable radio. Then he would attack them and try to drag them off the jogging trail and into the woods. Both women had escaped, but perhaps he had attacked Levy, too, with fatal consequences. Police had first interviewed Guandique just after Levy disappeared, but he had passed a lie detector test. They did not meet with his victims or interview his family and friends using Spanish-speaking detectives, and they also failed to check his possessions for forensic evidence. Since police had used a Spanish-speaking interpreter for the polygraph test, detectives began to question the validity of their results. Then the investigation stalled again. However, the impact of Condit's highly publicized romance with Levy did not stop. He filed lawsuits against several media outlets and journalists that had implicated him in her disappearance. A suit against the National Enquirer was settled, while one against USA Today was dismissed. Condit also sued Vanity Fair writer Dominic Dunn for slander to the tune of $11 million. In 2005, Condit won an undisclosed amount of money and an apology from Dunn, who had implicated him in the disappearance of Chandra Levy. Condit moved to Arizona and bought 2 Baskin-Robbins ice cream outlets in Phoenix in 2005. However, that venture came to an end after the company sued him and his son for mismanagement. The ice cream maker claimed that the men had defaulted on their payment obligations for the 2 franchises. The court ruled in the company's favor during a one-day trial in 2007, and the Condits were ordered to pay $44,431 to Baskin-Robbins for past fees and another estimated $60,000 in lawyers' fees and interest. When Kathy Lanier became chief of the District of Columbia Police in 2007, she set about revisiting some of her force's thousands of cold cases. She assigned 3 new detectives to the Levy investigation, and 3 federal prosecutors joined them in their quest to finally put the case to rest. They interviewed more than a dozen witnesses, 2 of whom claimed that Guandique had admitted that he killed Levy. Although there was no physical evidence linking Guandique to the murder, U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Taylor believed that the cumulative weight of circumstantial evidence pointed to convict. On March 3, 2009, Guandique was finally charged with first-degree murder in connection with Levy's killing. He was arraigned in May in the District of Columbia Superior Court on 6 counts, including first-degree murder, kidnapping, and attempted sexual abuse. He pleaded not guilty to all counts. Judge Jeffrey Alpern set a 2-week jury trial for January 27, 2010, which has been moved to October 2010 pending further charges. Guandique is currently serving his 10-year sentence for his assaults on 2 other women at a federal prison in California. He is set for release on July 31, 2011, and he will face deportation back to El Salvador. We bow in front of you, thank you for watching, please subscribe it and like it.